Hello and happy Let's Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Georgette, I'm the mom.
And I'm TJ, I'm the son.
And we both study and work in the field of psychology. We're passionate about sharing what we know with you so that you can live your best life. And today happens to be Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday, which marks the end of carnival season. So carnival season it starts at the Epiphany, which is 12 days after Christmas, when the wise men visited baby Jesus, and it ends today, because today is the last day. And tomorrow is Ash Wednesday, which is the start of Lent. But there are many traditions associated with Mardi Gras. According to Peter Stromberg, transitions in life are often marked by traditions, which kind of makes sense, because when you have these big events in your life, they can be anxiety provoking. And so it's nice to have those traditions that we can rely on, because those are things we can control or expectations we know about. It's interesting, though, that they've actually found research that says that transitions are associated with traditions. Some anthropologists suggest that's because the unknown and that anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your favorite tradition associated with Mardi Gras?
For sure, the dressing up and all the cool stuff that you get to wear and exposed to the people that maybe don't necessarily know all that much about you.
Yeah, that's a great segue into masks and costumes, which I want to talk a little bit about. So masks allow us to express subversive feelings more freely. When you think about it, we spend a large part of our day controlling our feelings, right? Emotionally regulating. And when we can assume another identity or assume a situation where we feel a little bit anonymous, it liberates us and allows us to maybe behave in a way we wouldn't ordinarily. Yeah, that's
freedom, right? The lack of consequences, so to speak, right?
Yeah. You can't blame me because you know who I am, right? So, costumes are also associated with social experiences that bond us with friends and family. And when you think about those instances where you've dressed up, they've been good experiences. You know, there's some kind of a celebration or some special event that's going on in our life, and so they're also associated with highly emotional experiences, which get encoded more into your memory, which is why we enjoy those particular types of events and we think about them and recollect them. And for those of us who like to be scared, costumes also activate our reward pathways. Yeah. So now you enjoy dressing up for different occasions.
Yes, I do.
Quite a lot of costumes on Facebook.
Yes, you
have. Are there some that make you feel more liberated or empowered?
Less clothing, the better.
La 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 la.
Yeah, no, seriously though, less clothing, the better.
Yeah.
And the amount of things, if I have a lot of things that empower the outfit, that makes me feel better about it.
Okay.
Can't say nothing about it.
So, like, the more you become that character, then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a method actor, so I have to become it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for completely owning a different role either, because you're allowed then to behave in a different way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Be saucy. Be a little naughty.
There are expectations or pressures besides traditions that are associated with Mardi Gras. And so that's what we really want to talk about today is social pressures, which actually takes three forms, the lowest of which is conformity. And that is when we alter our behavior or opinions to match those people around us. The next level up is compliance, which is when we change our behavior or opinions at the request of others. And then the last level is obedience, and that is when we alter our behavior or opinions at the command of someone who's either in authority or we perceive to be in authority.
And that's the interesting part, who we perceive to be in authority, because I bet we have the likelihood of looking at someone in like a higher reverence just automatically than we would anybody else. That's interesting.
Well, yeah, we give them authority.
We give them
authority over us.
We give people authority over us,
yes,
right? So
absolutely.
more often than not, this social pressure is something that we almost create within ourselves, right? Obedience to an authority figure, but who's being an authoritarian at the time?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Today we're going to focus on conformity, though, because it aligns very nicely with Mardi Gras. And so I'm wondering, do you have any instances that you can feel that you maybe felt pressure to conform?
Yes. I think the easiest one is if you're on a sports team or with friends in general. You just want to agree with somebody, if you just want to avoid an argument or something like that. Yeah, something along those lines, probably the easiest too.
Right. A conformity is subtle. And it's not anybody asking us to do it. It's a pressure that we put on ourselves because we want to fit in usually, just like you're describing. There's normative influences that impact conformity and informational. So normative is when you go along with what the group does because you just want to be accepted. Informational is when you go along with what a group does because you think they might have different or better information than you do. And so those are the two levels of conformity. It's often a result of the social norms, right? Like I stand up in front of a class, and I am able to act a certain way because of a social norm. If I walked into my class and stood, sat down and talked to them from behind the room, they would all be very confused because there's a social norm, a social expectation of what somebody in my role should be doing.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
Social norms are expected standards of conduct which influence behavior. They indicate basically what behavior is appropriate at a given time and how people should respond to those if somebody violates it. And so one exercise I like to do with my classes, I like to have a few people stand up and come to the front of the room, and we pretend we're in an elevator, and everybody assumes the normal position. First 4 people in get a corner, right? The last one gets in the center facing forward. But I'll have 4 people in each corner of our pretend elevator, and I stand in the center and I turn around with my back to the door and I look at them. Makes them so uncomfortable that it's almost fun, right? Groups are something that actually help to enforce social norms. So we're going to talk a little bit about the effect of groups on conformity. So one thing that I think is really fascinating is social facilitation versus social loafing. So social facilitation, not so easy to say. That is when the mere presence of others improves your performance. And I've experienced this personally. I can think of an example. Oftentimes in my class, I'll have somebody come and visit. And just having somebody come visit and know I'm being watched, I'm like a Jedi. I'm like, I'm landing all the questions. I'm doing everything right. They say that when a task is easy and somebody observes you, you do that much better. But when a task is hard and somebody observes you, it's that much harder. So it all depends on your comfort level with what you're doing.
Depends on how you're looking at it, right?
Yeah.
How many times have you done it? How many times have you done it correctly? Likelihood and all that good stuff? Yeah.
And then social loafing, that's a tendency that we have to work less hard when we're in a group. And I get to see this in classes too. You always get those people who are going to let everybody else do the group work. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always in my group.
Yeah.
See, it's funny. I'm probably the fourth. I felt like the fourth stupid person on campus, but the 3 that were below me, I felt like were always in my group. Didn't see that coming, did you?
De-individuation is something that happens with groups as well. De-individuation is when you have a reduced state of individuality or self-awareness. And basically that means that it gives you a real freedom because you're almost stepping outside of the box. Yeah.
You're taking the box and you're just crumpling it up and you're just ripping it.
Right.
And you're just going to kick it. Yes.
Now, when you add de-individuation with conformity, and you put on a Mardi Gras mask, and who knows what you would do in a parade, right? I mean, even, the most,
I'm wearing my mask.
Yeah. Even the most, quiet, reserved person, when they're in a state of de-individuation and wearing a mask and or feeling the pressure to conform with the other group, might do something they ordinarily wouldn't do.
What would you do with a mask on, Mother? What would you do?
You know what? I think I would certainly feel a lot freer to do whatever the group was doing without risk of judgment or... Yeah, I think it's fun to think about what you would do with that kind of freedom.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Group polarization is something that happens in groups too. Usually when people are in groups, if they make a risky decision, they'll make even riskier decisions in a group because they have that that extra support. You know, that group mentality, that group think going on, right?
Yeah, I got your back, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks.
Right, and so you're that much stronger in your opinions, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and also the reverse happens as well. If you are somewhat cautious, then when you're in a group, you're going to be even that much more cautious.
Makes sense. Be overthinking more things.
Right. Groupthink describes an extreme form of group polarization that typically occurs a lot of times when the group is under intense pressure, is facing external threats, or is biased in a particular direction. Anytime those three things happen and you're in a group thinking might actually start taking place.
Fascinating.
Social roles are behaviors that are associated with people in a given position. So I talked about that a little bit earlier. As a teacher, I have a role, and there are certain norms associated with that role. It can influence us so profoundly, though, that we engage in behavior entirely atypical and damaging in ways. You know, and that's like what
try
you were
to play
saying.
The character too much, right?
Right,
You keep that mask on 24/7. Yeah.
Yeah, if you are at all interested in learning more about that, there's some videos that you can see on YouTube about the Stanford prison experiment and how you give people a role and not a lot of direction, and it can get intense.
They fill in their own direction.
Really intense, yeah.
And that direction is not going in the right way, if you know what I mean.
So I did some research, and UC Santa Cruz Counseling Services has some really great tips on how to handle overt and indirect pressure that we're going to scare us.
We're gonna scare you with.
Yeah, it's normally we film
stuff.
this in the morning after our workout, and it's the evening, and we're feeling it a little bit tonight.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The first tip, though, to handling overt and indirect pressure is give yourself permission to avoid people or situations that don't feel right and to leave a situation that becomes uncomfortable. Now, work on setting boundaries. It's okay for you to do what is best for you.
Yes.
Check in with yourself. Ask yourself, how am I feeling about this? Does this seem right to me? What are the pros and cons of making this decision?
The pros and cons are going to be the interesting one to do, because that's the one that you can always rely on, no matter if you're feeling more leaning in the direction of a decision or maybe leaning in the opposite direction. But the pros and cons are something that you can't change with your emotions. So if you have and you make that list, it's much easier for you to keep those boundaries and to set further boundaries along the way.
Absolutely. That's a very good point to make.
Counseled.
Right, you're right. You're very right. Like, taking that emotion out of it allows you to be a better decision maker. Yeah. Recognize unhealthy dynamics. It's not okay for others to pressure, force, or trick you into doing things you don't want to do, or for others to make threats if you don't give in. It's not okay for others to mock, belittle, shame, or criticize you for your choices. You can ask others to stop these behaviors, or you can choose to avoid spending time with people who act in these ways. And I think I've always said, I say this a lot, you need to surround yourself with people who make you feel better about yourself. And if that's not the case, you need to disassociate with those people.
Yeah, or the people that motivate you to do more.
Right. In a good way. It was good for you. Yeah. Spend time with people who respect your decisions and won't put unfair pressure on you to conform. Remember that you can't and don't have to please everybody or be liked by everyone.
Because it's impossible. It cannot be done. And also, someone's opinion of you is most likely your created opinion, because you never get the full story from somebody. So just focus on making yourself happy and yourself satisfied, and that will lead the people into your life that should be around you.
Right. When people or situations that make you feel pressured are not avoidable, try the delay tactic. Give yourself time to think about it, your decision, instead of giving an immediate answer. Say, let me think about it. Can I get back to you? Or check back with me in an hour, kind of message. When you can't avoid or delay a pressure-filled situation, practice saying no thanks or just no. It is hard to say no to people who you want to be with and you want to hang around with. I think it gets easier, though, as we practice it. And it's so much more empowering, I think, when you say, no, I don't think that's a good choice for me, and I'd rather not. That's so hard to do the first time, but I guarantee you the more you do it, the more power you'll feel.
Well, because no, in that moment, right, it's so easy to look at that and just be like, no, we're assuming that there's going to be negative feedback, loss of friendships, loss of that. But like you said, in the full view of life, you get to look back and say, because I stopped myself here, I was able to establish the things that I wanted to establish in my life. So when you set that no, it's not necessarily just for the short term, because in the short term, you're going to want to make people happy and all those other things. But in the long term, it's like, I'm saying no because this is not so much an intentional, purposeful decision that will help me in the direction I want to go in my life.
Right. And I bet that in most cases there's somebody else who's also on the fence, but just not strong enough to stick up for themselves. So if you do it, then you give them the freedom to say, you know what, me too. I don't think I'm going to do that either.
And whenever you allow yourself to be the full essence of yourself, you give other people the opportunity to be inspired to be the person that they're supposed to be as well.
Another suggestion they have is it's okay to use an excuse if the truth is too challenging. For example, if someone offers you a drink and you want to say no but feel awkward, say you're on medication or you have to get up early the next day. Blame your mother. We're all for it.
Yeah, I say my mom put a chip in my arm, and as soon as alcohol hits the bloodstream, it sends 911 ambulances.
Right.
Yeah. But then the problem is they want me to test it, so I'm screwed regardless. So I'll drink. It's fine. No, I won't.
Take a friend who supports you along if you're going to be in a pressure-filled situation, and let them know what your intentions are ahead of time. Yes. Stand up for others when you see them being pressured. Bystander intervention is what that's called. And then ask for advice or support from a parent or a trusted friend or family member if you need extra help with this.
Yeah.
It really can be a tough thing to do, but I also think it's an important thing to do.
And it's something that everybody has experience with. There's not anybody on the planet that said no or set these types of boundaries and, have gone perfectly through each execution of those decisions, right? It's the fact of intentionally doing these things because you know it's going to be better.
Right. So this week, what we'd like you to focus on is respecting your boundaries and surrounding yourself with people who do as well so that you can live your best life. Happy Let's Talk About It Tuesday and Mardi Gras, and we will see you next week.